Okay, so totally unscripted.
Yeah.
We were having lunch, and Joanne is our videographer.
Yes.
Kudos to Joanne,
Yes,
does amazing
Joanne.
work, thank you. So she brought up a question where we said before, and I'm trying to paraphrase here, but it's like everybody needs to be in sales, essentially.
Right.
And she had a reaction, she's like, not me, like I don't be in sales. So I think it's a great point, and I wanted to try and just dig into that and see, like, why did we say that, and what do you think? Like, why does everybody need to be in sales?
I've long held the philosophy that we need to we have to ask the questions that to find out the information we need to hear, not what we want to hear, right? And if you understand that we don't always what we need to make us better isn't always what we want.
Right.
So most people, the idea of selling is like hearing chalk on a board, right? And we'll hear things like I'm an engineer, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a teacher, I'm anything, but I'm not in sales. But the reality is, using Bedrock as a principle, we're all selling something, whether it's getting our kids to eat vegetables, right? Whether it's selling the concept of an innovative new startup for a capital raise, or whether it is literally going out and pounding the pavement for another deal. But
if I jump in there for a second, do you think that, because I agree with you on all those points, but where people's reaction is, do you think it's because that word sales, they sort of associate with the sleazy car salesman, to use a cliche, and that as soon as we bring that up, that's the image, and it's like, no, that's not me.
And pushy and uncomfortable and disingenuous, absolutely.
Because I agree with you that it's sales ultimately, you're selling vegetables to your kids, or you're selling your ideas at work, and your kids are actually very good salespeople. They're selling to you the reasons they should be eating the lollipop or the candy. But yeah, so if we had to change the word, and I don't want to take you off course, but we're saying sales has got a bad label to it. But if everybody's in the world of they have to influence them to their ideas, you think that's where people are reacting?
It comes back to people don't like to be uncomfortable. Most of us don't, right? We like to feel comfortable. We don't like to, you talk a lot about, I'm going to use the wrong language, but how the brain uses too much glucose to process complicated ideas. We want to be comfortable. So forcing your idea on someone or getting someone to do something they don't want to do is not an easy thing. And so sales makes people uncomfortable. They don't want to have to be out of their comfort zone. So most people don't want to be in sales. But making them understand that if you are ultimately in any role of any sort, actually to get to the next step, to be more effective, to have an influence, to create that entrepreneurial career, really anything, you have to be able to sell ideas, concepts, relationships, or raw product. And it's a little bit of that courage to say, hey, here's the reality of the situation, right? Much like we talk about owning your circumstances, because if we understand we're all selling something, right? You can actually then become much more effective at communicating and probably have happier outcomes, whether it be in a relationship, more product sold, more business partners acquired. But it's the idea of being in sales definitely has blockages for a lot of folks.
Yeah, and I back to, and Joanne, hopefully we're swinging you on this, or swaying you that everybody is in sales, because if you're applying for a job, you're selling yourself. If you're negotiating with your kids to eat healthier, you're selling. You're selling ideas all the time. Yeah. And so I think we just need to accept that it's not a bad word, and it's not a bad position to be in. It's just acknowledging that, we need to be in, you want to be more comfortable, we can use the word influence, but we are influencing people around us, and it's not a bad thing. So Lara, you've built sales organizations, and highly effective sales organizations, multiple times. So what advice would you give people that they can take on a practical day-to-day basis? So principles of selling or influence that they could use if they're applying for a new job, or they're selling their idea, or they're selling healthy vegetables to their kids. Like, what are the principles you think you could extract to give people they can use?
The first one, no matter what type of sell you're in or influence circle you're in, you have to be memorable. If that's telling a story to your kids on why the vegetables are positive, or whether it's having some kind of impact when you enter a room for a key audience, you have to be memorable. That would be kind of a starting point.
So how do you be memorable, if we sort of dig in on that a little bit?
Something unique about you, and you got to put yourself out there a little bit, right? It's back to even taking risk. Risk doesn't mean having to, cut full paychecks and take on full business risk. Risk sometimes means putting yourself out there and asking questions, or making yourself vulnerable a little bit, sharing something about yourself that creates a story someone will remember you by. It could be acknowledging in a business meeting that you don't have all the answers, right? But creating a moment of connection that makes you memorable, because the easiest way to be unmemorable is actually to be too polished, right? Coming with all the right answers and all the right textbook scripting, which, just back to building a sales team or sales environment, a scripted environment is probably one of my worst setups, right? It breeds complacency, it breeds the opposite of innovation, because you have folks who don't think, and it just doesn't drive well to the person on the other end of the phone or the other end of the table, where it's just you're not dealing with authenticity. So this being memorable basically means having courage to be who you are. That's the first piece. And so if you're building a sales team, hiring folks who are authentic, right? They need to have raw talent of what you're looking for. That may or may not mean an industry piece of experience. It may or may not mean a certain personality style, but they need to be authentic in whatever that build is. The next part is making sure you understand what your offering is and understand who your audience is. So who's your target market? Who's your ideal target customer or client? Because if you have those three core ingredients, you're really further down the field. So being memorable, aka authentic, know what it is you're taking to the market, and all the pieces that go with that, and know who your target audience or buyer is. If you have those three pieces, the rest is kind of technique and coloring in the lines. But many times sales teams are not set up for success where they are not authentically comprised. They're boring. Right? They're overpaid and boring sometimes, right? They click too many of the right boxes, but there's nothing unique. They don't have a good grasp on what it is they're taking to the market. Therefore, they can't differentiate or stand out. And they don't know how to tackle who the ideal buyer is. So those three things in tandem would be very important. What do you think?
Oh, no, I think those are great. And as you were speaking, I was writing down words, and one that I wrote and you said it like 2 seconds after was authentic. Because I think that's key. And for me, the being memorable is what you're talking about, essentially building rapport, right? So it's because people forget that at the end of the day, we're all relationship beings. And so and people buy from people, right? So you got to build that relationship. It's got to be a relationship of trust. And if you're putting on this veneer or this mask and just speaking to a script, you're not being yourself, and people pick up on that at a subconscious level, and they're not connecting with you, so because you're not being authentic, and so you're not building that authenticity, the authenticity, the rapport, the trust, which is a foundation. So I totally agree that being memorable, I like how you phrase it, is the starting point. Being comfortable with trusting you, and then you knowing what value you're providing them. So helping them see how they can get to the value, which is essential, because you're not going to go and sell I always talk about the features and the benefits. Like, people are not interested in the features and benefits. We don't buy cars because it's got 6 more cup holders and a bigger exhaust pipe and 4 doors, which are the features and benefits. We buy cars and everything else because of how it makes us feel. So we want that experience. We want something. We want a feeling. And so if we can help people, one, understand the feeling or the thing that they want, and then show them how they can get them. And those are the principles, which is, you laid it out in a very, very nice way. It's
just to pivot slightly. Anyone and thank you to those who has listened to the Bedrock series course, Team Effect, will know that here we are talking about building a team, right? Effective teams, let's say sales team. Yet so much is anchored around this idea of vision and effective, authentic communication. And I'm sure many folks are thinking, well, where was my checklist of all the must-dos to build a team? Same example I'll give in a different analogy. I know someone who's desperately trying to meet someone in their life. They're divorced. They're looking for a new partner. And they've got this whole checklist of what this person must have, including a BMI, by the way, which I think is absolutely horrendous.
An exact BMI is like,
I kid you not, a BMI. It's actually appalling.
BMI is body mass index, for those of you who might not know.
Is that not completely inappropriate? Nevertheless,
which is your weight, is the
So the person must fit a certain size, but there's this checklist. But both scenarios, this where's my checklist on how to build a team, or here's my checklist of the ideal partner, miss 2 fundamental things. It all starts with working on yourself. You cannot attract a dynamic team if you yourself are not authentic and are absolutely at parallel with who your bedrock is. Because you're not authentically communicating. You will not be able to onboard folks to your vision, therefore empower and enable them to actually go take your product, your vision to market. If you're not at core ease with who you are as an individual and maybe comfortable with your own BMI, right? you're not going to attract someone who's naturally at comfort with themselves. And so your relationship comes out the gates with potential issues that you don't need. So
yeah, I couldn't agree more.
all these things come back to building great teams, Aaron, sales for non-sales people. It actually all comes back to digging into your bedrock.
I know, I agree. It comes down to that. It's understanding yourself, being comfortable with yourself, because it's from that place you can then build a relationship, well, probably starting with yourself, or certainly starting with yourself, and then build a healthy relationship with people. And then it's only through that relationship you can start to influence them and quote unquote sell them. Sell them is not a bad thing, because you're helping them get what they want.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome.